questions you got.
Chaim, I haven't seen the fans or the media been this pessimistic about the Red Sox since 1964.
What's what's the question?
Why should they feel optimistic?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, first of all, Johnny, it's great to see you fully clothed. Um, Look, you know, I would say this. I think, granted, 2020 did not go the way anybody wanted. And I know there's been a lot of things over the last year plus that have been downers for our fan base and really for our organization. I think it's easy for that to have people look past the talent that's on this roster, and I don't think anybody should. You know, the frontline talent that we have can play with anybody. And we've added over the course of the winter a lot of interesting depth, a lot of guys that can do a lot of different things on the field. You know, we're more versatile, we're more athletic, our pitching staff is deeper. You know, so I don't want the stain of last year to have people just look past the talent that we have. You know, we're here in spring training. This is a time for hope, for renewal. You know, last year was what it was, and I think one of the things about spring training, I know that as soon as I get out of here, you know, there's going to be 10 different issues. I know that we've just been through a long, cold winter, but I think it's important for us to take the time to just take a breath, feel lucky that we get to do this, and see all the possibility, see what could be out there when we look at the talent that we have and we see the way these guys are gelling early in camp. There's a lot of talent here, so I'm excited for what this group can accomplish.
How is the team looking to you the first 3 days?
Well, it's so early that, you know, I think the truth about especially the early part of spring training is in many ways the more uneventful, the better. You know, guys are getting their work in. You don't want anybody trying to make a club in February. That's probably not the greatest way to go about it. That sometimes leads to problems down the road if they're trying to do too much too soon. But that said, everything we've seen has been pretty interesting. Guys have come in looking good. You know, everybody seems to be in good shape. A lot of the newcomers are looking, you know, as expected in a good way. And some of the guys that we really hadn't seen much of that we're eager to get eyes on for the first time, those guys have come in looking good. So it's been exciting to be out there. You know, the vibe has been great. It's been fun to be around this group.
How optimistic are you about Erod and Chris?
Very optimistic in both cases. Erod looks good. As you guys know, I know he's said and everybody said, you know, he's full go. We got to make sure we take care of him. You know, he's coming off something that nobody has really experienced, so we need to be mindful of that. But, you know, we know how talented he is, and we just got to make sure we give him a good ramp up to the season so he can go out there and be himself, and he doesn't have to worry about, you know, everything that happened last year when he's out there. And with Chris, I tell you what, one of the greatest sights of spring for me so far has been seeing Chris Sale throw a baseball. You know, we've been waiting for that for a long time, and it's great to see him out there. I think it's great for him going through this grueling rehab to be around the group, you know, to have everybody come here. Of course, he's been here the whole time rehabbing, and to have everybody show up here and be around, I think has been a lift for him. You know, we got to do it the right way with him. You know, you can't take shortcuts in this process, but we have every confidence he's going to come out of this as the Chris Sale that we know.
What will Alex add to the mix?
I'm sorry, I missed who you were asking about.
What will Alex add? Alex Cora, what will he add to the mix?
And you guys know Alex probably at least as well as I do, and in many cases better. You know, he has just a charisma about him where, you know, people feel lifted up by being around him. And that's a great thing, you know, in somebody who you have leading your group, where he can bring the best out of people. That's what we're looking for, you know, in a manager. And he connects as well as anybody that I've seen. Already I've been struck by, you know, players that are new to camp, you know, that we try to have some conversations with for the first time. He's gotten all of them already. He's talked with everybody. You know, he just has a good way over the course of the day of circulating, make sure he touches every player, that he gets to know everybody. He's fun to be around, and he brings a lot of energy and a lot of optimism to the group.
Thanks.
Chaim, what are your expectations for the group? You mentioned you like the collection of talent. You feel obviously going to be better than last year, but do you see this as a wild card team, a division winner? Where do you see this leading?
I just don't like to put limits on a group ever. I mean, if you're not starting the year trying to win the World Series and hoping to win the World Series, you're in the wrong business. Now, we obviously, as I talk about all the time, we have long-term objectives as well because we want this organization to be positioned to do that every year. And that takes planning, and that takes an eye on the future as well as the present. But I think we've got a lot of talent here. So I think our job is not to try to pinpoint a spot on the map where we're hoping to land. It's to try to put everybody in as good a position as we possibly can to succeed. And if we're not working towards that ultimate goal, we're in the wrong business.
Have you engaged with Jackie at all over the last little bit, or is the organization kind of moving on in that realm?
No, we've continued to stay in touch and, to make sure we're in touch with Scott, about his situation. We're going to do that, until it resolves. Now, obviously, as the winter's gone on, we haven't let that prevent us from making other moves when we've seen opportunity to add good players that fit us and that can bolster this roster. But we love Jackie, and we've stayed in touch, with Scott on him throughout the entire winter.
This is traditionally.
All right, you were listening to Red Sox Chief of Baseball Operations, Chaim Bloom, with one of his first media availabilities.
Sorry, go ahead, Sean.
This is traditionally a time of year when
What is your,
teams take a look at
I would say,
some.
main focus? What is the first big question?
Sorry, I'm kind of noisy. This is traditionally the time of year when teams take a look at some extensions for current players. Without getting into specifics, would you anticipate that there may be some candidates to do that? And are there some people that you've identified for whom you'd like to get talks going there?
Yeah, we've talked about it internally some. Obviously, the winter was so unique, and the lead up to spring training, and even some of the uncertainty about when spring training would start, has been a unique aspect to this that has caused us to focus so much of our planning just on making sure that we're doing the right things here to get this set up and make sure that we're taking care of our players. But we have had some conversations internally. I expect as we get into the spring that those conversations will pick up. Don't know what it will lead to. Obviously, if and when they do pick up, it's not something we're going to speak publicly about unless there's something to report. But this is the time when a lot of those things often happen, so I would expect we'll at least have some conversations about it with some guys.
I'm just wondering, where do you sit, or what's been going through your mind when it comes? A lot of the talk early in baseball has been about pitchers and innings limits, and no one knows what 2020 did, or how it will affect these guys being able to throw 150 to 200 innings. What are your thoughts on that, and how are you trying to build up on that? And Alex has talked about some of the depth you've got in the pitching staff. How important do you think that will be going forward?
Yeah, well, as important as depth is in a normal season, I think it's probably even more important now. I think anybody who thinks they can tell you exactly what last year means for this year as far as workload, as far as how to handle pitchers, if anybody thinks they've got that all figured out, I'd like to talk to them because I don't buy it. I think we're all kind of finding our way and just using the best information we have and using all the knowledge we have. Now, I think Bushy and our sports medicine staff, sports science group have done a great job talking through not just innings limits and pitch counts, but also just how to ramp up workload, how to monitor workload as the season goes on. That's as or more important sometimes as an innings limit. It's just making sure that we're keeping the workload in a good place and that we're not ramping guys up too quickly and that we're not having huge variations in their workload as we go. There's going to be some art to this. It's not just science. We have to monitor guys. We have to stay in really close touch with how guys are doing, and use some judgment as well as trying to plan things out. But in general, I think it will lead us to be a little more on the conservative side with how we handle guys. But we also have to remember this is something that they condition their entire lives, their entire careers to do. And just because we went through a really strange year last year doesn't mean we want to totally turn on its head everything that these guys prepare every offseason to do. We need to make sure that the experience that they have this year is not too far off what they normally condition to do, because that's what they prepare for.
Chaim, it's been, I think, 11 days since there were reports that you guys signed Marwin Gonzalez. Can you update us on his situation, and if you think there's going to be any additions to your roster at this point?
Nothing that we can confirm just yet. Hopefully soon. That's hopefully won't be too much longer now.
And beyond that, is this the roster you think, at least for now, that you'll have? Or
We have there's nothing other than what you alluded to. Nothing else pending. But we're always going to be on the lookout. There's still some players out there that are of interest. We're going to keep staying in touch with them, keep monitoring them. You guys saw the other day, obviously, we made a waiver claim. This is a time of year when sometimes there can be that kind of roster shuffling in other organizations. And, it's a bit early in spring to start having a lot of those conversations with other clubs, but we just want to make sure that we're active, that we have our finger on the pulse, and that we don't walk past anything that has a chance to help us.
kind of on that topic generally, last year was the first time you put together a roster for this team. There was a lot going on in the offseason last year, obviously. How much better do you feel just about maybe the process that you had for this year and the kind of team that you were able to put together?
Well, I don't know that this past winter was a normal winter either, for other reasons, but it wasn't normal for anybody in the game. I mean, we were all facing some of the same obstacles in terms of many unknowns, whether it was, with the effects of the virus on our industry, with the timing of the season, looking out ahead to next winter and the expiration of the CBA. That's stuff that everybody is dealing with. I certainly think we had a more normal process, I would say, going through everybody who was available and trying to figure out how we wanted to navigate the offseason. Again, we also entered the offseason, starting a managerial search and, some other things that were going on. So I wouldn't say it was a normal offseason, but when I look back at, how we set out to do this and then some of the moves we made along the way, the various decisions we made and some of the players we brought in, I feel pretty good about how the group, our group in the front office, working with the field staff, getting opinions, how we were able to put the information together and bring some players in here that we think can help us.
Alex had mentioned Garrett Whitlock jumping out yesterday. Is there anyone for you, I know it's only been a couple days, but has there been anyone for you that's sort of jumped off and impressed in these few days?
I try my hardest not to put too much in these early impressions, just because, again, it's February, and I think, sometimes I think we might make better decisions if we didn't watch so closely, especially at this stage of the spring. Of course, you can't help yourself, right? You want to see how guys come in. Great to see Garrett come in the way that he looked. Got to see Josh Winkowski throw a bullpen yesterday and was excited. That looked good. And even some of our returning guys, just see them come in and be who you hope they were. We've talked about some of them, whether it's Eddie coming off the strange year and illness that he had, whether it's just seeing Chris throw and look normal, and look comfortable. I really there have been a lot of good things. Those are two that stuck out to me. But more at this time of year, I think you're just hoping to see guys come in good shape and looking how you hope they would look.
How much will the return of J.D. Martinez to his 2019 form help the team?
It's absolutely critical for us. We've seen, all of baseball has seen over the last few years how important he is to our lineup and just how much he brings a lineup together when he's doing what he can do. He's such a complete hitter when he's right. I actually chatted with him today, saw him face-to-face for the first time in a while. We talked about the club, and, he looks great. I'm just excited for him to be able to put last year in the rearview mirror. And, we know how good a hitter he is and what a student of hitting he is, and, just how much he changes a lineup when he is that force in the middle of the lineup.
Do you have any further idea of when Sawamura is going to be able to get to camp, or any idea how long that process might take?
Not precisely. We're still working through some stuff with the visa. Hoping, a week or so, give or take. I don't think it'll be sooner than that. But, rough timetable, we're hoping, in a week or so that we'll be able to get him to Fort Myers. Obviously, once he arrives, there's intake. That adds a couple days to everybody's timetable before we can actually get him on the field. But hopefully not too much longer. We want to make sure we have enough time to get him ready for the season. Obviously, as a reliever, we don't have to stretch him out, so that's good. He's been throwing. He's been doing everything that he needs to do. So hopefully it won't be too much longer before we can get him here.
Obviously, you guys have an important draft coming up, the 4th overall pick. What are some of the challenges that you guys face with the college baseball season? Is there anything that's going to make it tougher because of, COVID restriction?
Yeah, COVID makes everything more difficult, frankly. It makes travel more difficult because we need to make sure that we're prioritizing the safety of our scouts. I can't wait for their sake when it's time, when it's their turn, to get vaccinated. So they don't have to feel, and we don't have to feel that they're taking, a risk with their own health to go out there and see players. And we've urged them all to be safe. And then obviously, to the extent that the virus causes postponements, causes cancellations, in the amateur season, that's going to be tough. But I think the biggest thing right now, a lot of these college players, these draft eligible juniors that we're seeing, we didn't get to see them play last year. So we are coming in to that season with less information than we usually have. So we're going to get a lot of information very quickly, and then we're going to need to figure out how to process that. Usually with these guys, you get to see them, you see them as freshmen, and a lot of those guys are in more limited roles, or they might struggle as freshmen, and then you see them get better and better until it's their draft year. With most college players that get drafted as juniors, we didn't have that year last year, so we're filling in a lot of those gaps as quickly as we can.
Also, you have, some good prospects in Major League camp. Tristan Cassis, he only played, I think, what was it, like 2 games at Salem in 2019. And then, last year he was impressive against advanced pitching, at the alternate training site. So how are you going to go about evaluating, certain guys to see where they should begin the season? I mean, like, with Cassis, like, is he double A? How do you determine that?
Yeah, these are going to be some really interesting conversations that we need to have, certainly over the course of this camp, and then even leading into minor league camp for those players who might be at double A or below, where, there's more time before their seasons start. I'm not sure that you can have a one-size-fits-all process for everybody. I think as we would any spring, our staff needs to put their heads together and try to make the best decisions we possibly can. It's going to be important to have these looks, whether it's with some of these guys in big league camp or the guys that aren't here when they come to minor league camp, to really get a sense of where they are. We are going to learn more about those players than we might in a normal camp, just because of how long they've been away from us. Now, we've been in touch with them while they've been away from us. We've been doing a lot of things to try to help them, but there's no substitute for in-person evaluation, for in-person teaching. And so we're going to learn a lot, and we just have to make the best decisions that we possibly can.
Chaim, you have the potential for a lot of power at the bottom third of the by design, and just how you feel the approach to that part of the batting order has changed even since you came into baseball.
Wasn't necessarily by design. I think, with the players we brought in, balance in a lineup, I think, is helpful. It is important. You don't want to be all one way or all the other way, but we were just looking for talent that fit us, and ideally talent that could impact a game in multiple ways, that we weren't bringing in one-dimensional players. That, even some of the guys that we brought in whose offense is mainly geared around power, they also can help us defensively. They also might have speed where they can help us on the bases. So it wasn't a deliberate strategy. I think there is something to be said for having a lineup that doesn't give a pitcher any breaks, where, when you are getting to the bottom of that order, you take one pitch off, it could end up in the seats. And there's a threatening aspect to that I like. But, it was not necessarily something deliberate. We were just trying to bring in the most impactful players that we could. It's definitely, the game, I think, has changed a lot, since I got in it, and even before then, where you now see all over the game lineups where, everybody can hit the ball over the fence. And it changes how you have to approach a lineup as a pitcher, especially in a close game. So, it's made the game a little different. Sometimes that power comes with trade-offs, but when you as a team, when you can threaten to put up a crooked number at any point in the game, and you don't have to just go station to station, you have the ability to clear the bases, that can help.
Obviously, in what you described as a tough year for everyone in 2020, I know you guys don't like the term, prognosticator at this time of year, but on paper, which is another term I know you don't like, what do you think the strengths and the weaknesses coming into Tampa are of this group of players?
I think our versatility and our athleticism, especially as compared to last year, should stand out as strengths. And, especially the first part, what I think that should allow us to do is just weather some of those tough spots more easily. We want to be, I think, more anti-fragile than we were last year, so to speak, where it doesn't matter who needs a day. It doesn't matter who's banged up. We can put a lineup out there that we can feel good about. We can, Alex has options to maneuver in game to basically face any situation and still feel like, he can make it work and he can do what he wants tactically. And I think that shows up in different ways that helps you win those extra few games that you might need to win to get you where you want to go. So I think, that's a huge strength of our position player group. Pitching wise, I think relative to last year, I think we're in a much better spot with our depth. But I'd also say, we're not where we want to be with that yet. I don't think you ever are, but we know how much the toll that a normal 162 game season takes on a club's depth. I think it's fair to expect that this season may be even more grueling. So you always want to make sure you have as much as possible. And you're not necessarily going to be able to create all that through the free agent or the trade market in the winter. A lot of it has to come internally. And that's why we've placed such an emphasis on the pipeline, because we always want to be in a situation where we have guys we can go down and grab who we think can come up here and perform. So it's at once, I think, a strength relative to where we were last year, and also hopefully just a step on the way of where we need to be.
Without picking a victory, a number of wins or projecting standings, what would constitute a successful season in terms of the big picture for 2021?
Yeah, I actually think the way you asked that is important, because, as I said earlier, any year when you don't win the World Series, you're disappointed. That is always the goal. But, we've talked about having a goal of putting this organization in a position to do that every year, to feel like we can do that every year. And some of those things are achieved over time. So I would say, we know we want to win as much as we possibly can this year. We want to win every game. We know that's not realistic, but that's what we want to do. But I would hope that no matter how this year goes, even if it ends with us popping champagne, that for me, I would love to get to the end of this year and be able to look and see that next core, because you always have to have a next core. That next core that is going to be the center of a sustainable championship contender, to see that core taking shape, both with the players who have been here who have been part of the core that won the last championship, that are going to continue to be here, and then the players who are going to join that group, whether it's from within our system, whether it's from guys we've acquired, or even guys who might not be here yet, to feel like by the end of the year, we can see that core taking even more shape than we can see right now.
Along those lines,
This year, sorry, go ahead, Alex.
thanks, Jim. Along those lines, a year ago at the start of the season, you guys had the number 20 ranked farm system, according to multiple publications. This year, at the start of the season, again, number 20 ranked farm system. Where do you see the farm system now and the pursuit of that next core taking shape relative to where you saw it 12 months ago at this time?
I do think we're in a better place. I know the public ranking hasn't moved, and I know some of that probably has to do with us, for instance, in the draft, using our first pick on a player that, we felt stronger about than I think a lot of the publications did. But I also think some of the players that we acquired over the course of this time, that can be part of this core, were not necessarily prospect eligible. You look at some of the guys that we've gotten back in some of these deals that we've made since I got here, whether it's an Alex Verdugo or a Nick Pavetta or guys like that. Obviously, we have also gotten prospects, but we've gotten some players who aren't going to boost our farm system ranking, but who hopefully will help us significantly, towards sustaining some really good performance for a long time. I feel like in our farm system that we've definitely done a lot to shore up the depth, and those guys don't necessarily make top 100 lists industry-wide. They might not even make our top 10 list, but they do have value. And I think we as an industry are getting better and better at learning what the value of those guys is. And some of those guys, you hope, and typically happens, some of those guys will emerge and be key pieces for us. We don't necessarily know who that's going to be, but that's why you need as many of them as you can possibly get. And once we get these guys out and playing, when we have a minor league season, we'll have a chance to see some of them separate themselves and take big steps forward. And hopefully that will happen this year. That'll be a big piece of this year, will be allowing all these players that we have acquired, and then some of them that are coming up through the system and have come up through the lower levels, including guys that came in before I got here, seeing them have a chance to take some steps forward in their development.
What are you doing this year, COVID protocol-wise, that different from last year in spring training and even during the season, that you might have learned from what you went through, during the season, and also in terms of playing in front of fans for the first time?
Yeah, spring training's a little bit new, for us in terms of COVID protocols, because of course we weren't doing this stuff down here, at least not in Fort Myers last year. I think knowing more about the virus is helping in terms of putting our focus in the right places, putting our focus around, making sure that we have even more of an emphasis on mask wearing than we did last year, that we're focusing on doing as many things outdoors as we possibly can. That's obviously a huge change from a normal spring training, to try when we eat, that we're doing those things outdoors, that we've got adequate distance, adequate ventilation. Those are the things that I think we've learned that we need to focus on the most. Not that we weren't focusing on them last year, but I think we know a little bit more. That's what's important to focus on. I do think, I've seen these first few days, as much as it's a lot. It's a big undertaking, and I can't say enough about our stadium ops crew and everybody here to get this place set up. I mean, it looks terrific, what they've done. But I think for the bulk of this group, having done this last year, it's a little more normal for people, and I think we've realized that we can have, albeit not as much, but we can have quality interaction and quality conversation, and we can have some fun out there on the field and still be safe. And I think we know that a little bit more than we did last year, and I think people have adjusted a little more.
In regards to some of those prospects you mentioned, is it more important because of the missed minor league season last year that guys go through every step of the minor leagues versus maybe skipping, a AAA like past Red Sox prospects that got called up did?
It's so individual. I've said to this group before, I'm generally not a huge fan of skipping steps unless there's a really good reason for it. Some players can do it, but I tend to think that the downside exceeds the upside. It obviously depends on the situation. If you stick too hard and fast to a rule, you might ignore a special player. But I think figuring out what value to put on what everybody did last year, whether it was at the alternate site or whether it was, at home, is hard. And we have to use this time to try to figure out exactly where they are. But I think we should just be careful to think that we know too much. And I think with respect to AAA in particular, I know AAA sometimes gets a bad rap in terms of being a place that is a more veteran league where you have a lot of guys who are not necessarily prospects on the way up. I think AAA can be a hugely important developmental step precisely for that reason, that you have a lot of guys who have been around the block a little bit and they know what they're doing. And they may have some flaws that are preventing them from being in the big leagues at a particular moment. But as far as the pitchers, they know who they are. They know how to get you out. They know how to use all their pitches. A lot of the position players really understand how to work at bats. And so I think that can be a huge developmental step because it's the one level where, it's harder for guys to master that level and then just automatically move out of it. And you have to face some guys who really know what they're about.
Okay, guys, anything else for Chaim? Just judging by how you've talked for the last 30, 35 minutes or so, just kind of a thought on, Red Sox fans can't be at the workouts, which start tomorrow, full squad. How good does it feel for you to be around baseball, to be in the sunshine, the warm weather, talking baseball amongst everybody, again, with all that's gone on in the last year?
Yeah, we're so lucky to be able to do this. We really are. And I do think it's good to, I talked about this at the beginning, but I think it's good to take a moment and, at least a little bit of time every day just to appreciate that we get to do this. We get to get ready to play another season of the greatest game there is. And I know it's going to be a little different. And, I think that's something that I hope that even though our fans can't be here, and I'll tell you what, it is strange not having people around here on the backfields, and we miss them. And I've said it before, even last year, spring training started on kind of a rough note, I know, for our fans. And still, they were here. And still, a lot of the interactions I had with them, whether they liked what we did, whether they didn't like what we did, they were in it with us. And they were pulling for us. And we felt that. And not to have it this year just stinks, and can't wait till we are able to have it. But, for everything that we've been experiencing, I'm not even just talking about the organization, I'm talking about our society over the last year, to be able to look at this as a time when we can hopefully bring some hope and some renewal and some sense of possibility to everybody who cares about this team. That's a privilege, and we're really, really lucky to be able to do that every day.
All right. Thanks, Chaim. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. Stay safe.
Great. So, I'm seeing tweets about.
Now the guys can go and go home and watch TV and order food.
Can they do anything when they're home? Go out and eat and stuff like that?
Not much. There's a lot of things that they're limited. I think restaurants, all of that are can go until March 1st, and then March 1st is only, like terraces or patios, whatever you want to call it. So there's a lot of home cooking for everybody. We actually there's some other stuff that they can do as far as like golfing and running outside and all that stuff. But we talked to the pitchers already about that. We'll talk to position players tonight. We'll make sure tomorrow we address it. Like I told them today, for 3 days they've been outstanding. They've done an outstanding job, not only on the field, but the things that really matter right now. And I'm very proud of them. And like I said, if we keep doing that on a daily basis all the way till, we're planning on being, I'm planning on going. The on the field stuff will take care of that. So it's cool to see them being disciplined and doing the things that they have to as far as the virus.
How do you hope Rich's team? What do you hope for Rich's this year?
We just need him to be him. He signed 2 years ago with the San Diego with the Padres. 1 year was for rehab. Last year he pitched. He did a good job stuff wise. Like I said yesterday, he's one of the best. We just got to keep him healthy, and we'll roll him every 5 days out there. And I do believe that his stuff plays. It's good. He works hard at his craft. A lot of feedback right away with Bushy, and we count on him.
Alex, do you I think the other day you had said you thought Eduardo was going to throw a live BP, but then it was Nate. Do you know when he might be throwing a live session? I know he threw a bullpen yesterday.
I do believe it's gonna be that was my mistake the first day. So Nate Richards. There's a heavy day of live BP on tomorrow or Tuesday. On Tuesday there's a heavy day of live BP. Probably is gonna be Tuesday. I'll check and let you know later today or tomorrow. Okay.
Alex, how will tomorrow be different? You guys usually have that big meeting with everybody and the owners are in and everything. What will you guys do differently tomorrow?
No, we're having the big meeting with ownership. They're gonna be here, so we'll have it. It's gonna be outdoors. It's gonna be actually at the stadium. We have it mapped out. There's a wave of players that they're gonna work out before the meeting, and then there's another one that they're gonna work out after that. So we're gonna have it tomorrow. I do believe that it's important to have the whole group. Obviously, Kevin and the rest of the group. They've done an outstanding job, preparing for that out there. But we had a Zoom meeting with the pitchers. We're going to have a Zoom meeting tonight with the position players. But that's more about guidelines and protocols and obviously some goals and talk about that. But I think tomorrow is the important one, having the whole group and talk about what we're planning on doing and how we are trying to accomplish that.
Your address is different every year, but do you plan on talking about everything that happened with you personally to the team?
I think little by little they know. During the recruiting process, I talked to the guys, so I don't think there's a need for me to address that as a group. Like I've been telling them, if they want to know more or they have something to tell me, my office is open. I've been very open about this during the summer and when I got the job, and I've been open with them about what happened, and I think everybody understands. Not everybody agree with what happened, but understanding that I'm here, I'm the manager of the Red Sox, and they trust me.
Alex, I know as a former infielder, you like to work with infielders, especially during spring training. I guess from watching video or what you know of Jeter Downs, what are you going to kind of stress to him defensively? And also, you saw Jonathan Abreu in the Caribbean series. Can you just discuss both of them?
Now, what was the first question? Sorry, Smitty.
Yeah. So what do you want to stress to Jeter Downs?
Oh yeah.
What did you see from Abreu that kind of impressed you maybe during the regular season last year, and then going into this year, obviously he has the ability to go back to the minors this year, so that could help him.
Yeah, I mean, with Jeter, get to know him first. He's a great athlete. Actually, he played for a good friend of mine in Miami at Slam Academy, Alfonso Otero, and then he knows me from so he knows the way I play defense, and he talked great things about him. Actually, Jeter worked out with John Jay too during the offseason, So I have a head start. I have a feel. I got a good feel about him, but I want to see him. We're just gonna let him play. Defensively, it seems like the game comes easy for him. Sometimes too easy, and maybe that's where he makes errors or the lack of concentration happens. But first of all, we have to learn the player. With Jonathan, the way he turned all plays last year, that was eye opening. He did an outstanding job. It seems like he can slow down the game defensively. He's very versatile. Obviously, this is a guy that we like, that we count on, but at the same time, he still needs to develop. And he's coming into camp. I just saw him, and physically, it's a different body than last year. He looks great. So just put the work and see what happens at the end.
What have you seen from Adam Ottavino so far, and what kind of role do you see him playing in the bullpen?
He's gonna get outs. He's gonna get big outs in the last third of the game. Whenever you guys ask me about these guys, that's gonna be the answer. But very smart individual. He's very quiet. He moves very smoothly and very slow around. But when you talk to him, he opens up, and he knows a lot about pitching. He knows himself, and like he told me a few days ago, he's excited to be here. We talk a little bit about roles and the way we're gonna use them. Not no roles, but the way we're gonna use them, and we're not gonna limit him to righties. He's gonna get lefties and righties out, and he worked hard in the offseason to improve a few things. He threw a bullpen today. Actually, Christian caught him, and this is a guy that he was very dominant in Colorado. He was dominant 2 years ago. He had a bad outing against Toronto last year, so he's a big part of what we're trying to accomplish, man. And I'm happy that he's pitching for us.
Alex, you guys added a lot of versatile infielders to the roster this winter. So where do you see Michael Chavis kind of fitting on the roster here, and maybe what do you think he needs to work on this spring to kind of compete with some of those guys?
Well, I mean, Michael, he had a great start in 19, right? He did an outstanding job hitting the ball up the middle. Obviously, he hit home runs. We know he can do that. But then, the league, he got that series against the Astros. I think it was back-to-back weekends. He faced best pitchers in the league, and they expose him, and he needs to make adjustments. I didn't see much of him last year, but he played a little bit of left field. I know that he can play first, he can play third, he can play second. The thing with him, we like the swing, we like the power, but he needs to make adjustments. He needs to make contact. He needs to hit lefties. It's very important. He looks in better shape than 2 years ago. He lost some weight, but he's still strong. He's been working, at second base, but as you know, we'll use him in those three positions in the infield, and we'll keep pushing him to play left field. So there's nothing guaranteed in this roster. Of course, there's certain guys that they're here to get ready for the season, but in his case, he needs to prove us that he's made adjustments throughout the off season. And although spring training is spring training, I would love to see him making contact, cutting the chase rate. And if he does that, he'll put himself in a good position.
Alex, have you gotten word on the length of spring training games out of the gate, and how are you going to approach that?
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, somebody talked about it yesterday like it was like Christmas, like the news just came out, and we knew a while ago. We can play 5, we can play 7 before March 13th. We're playing a 9-inning game against the Rays right away because it's a national TV game. So national TV games, you have to play 9. We got to cover the 3 hours at least, for sponsors. Yeah. But we will play 7-inning games. We're not playing 5. We're cover as far as the pitching. Now you don't need backups. As soon as if the inning is getting out of hand, you can stop it right there. I think it's 20. Maybe with us, it's gonna be 25. But we like it. I do like it. I think 7 innings is good for everybody, including the position players. So that's where we're gonna go. I think the second part of spring training, we'll play it depending on obviously where we at pitching wise, but probably we're gonna start playing 9 innings.
Alex, was that something you decided talking to, Rocco and Cashy and the other managers, or the guys that you're going to be playing most of the time?
No, actually, Cashy called me the other day, and he wants to play 15. Lucky him, He has all those horses over there. But we'll talk about it. But I think everybody, you have to make the decision the day before. You gotta call the league at 5:00. You get together, probably you make a few phone calls and you get together with the opposition. But from our standpoint, 5 it doesn't make any sense. I think everybody needs to, and I'm not managing the other teams, but I think you still have to get the other guys ready too. The guys that are not gonna make the teams, right? Because you never know when you're gonna need them. And you never know when they're gonna start playing. So it's a balancing act, and I think 7 for us is what we're trying to shoot for. Obviously, we will talk to the opposition before, and we'll make it work.
Alex, you have the potential for a lot of power from the bottom 3 spots of your order. I'm curious how those 7, 8, 9 spots have changed since you played and batted down there versus today.
It's changed a lot. We were actually talking about where we at baseball wise. You see Richards warming up today, and I pulled Goody aside. I said, Goody, look at this guy, and he reminds you of Kevin Brown and Garrett. So far, he's had a lot of injuries, and we talk about his stuff, and we're comparing it with one of the best that we've seen, and it's just amazing where they at pitching wise. So it's tough to hit, and the other side, talking about hitting, like we might have, 2 guys hitting 8th or 9th that might run into, I don't know. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna say a number, but they might run into a lot of home runs, and if that's the way we're gonna cash in runs in the bottom of the lineup, so be it. I think 1 swing, 1 run, we'll take that instead of hitting a single, bunting him over, and try to drive him in. With 1 swing, we can do that. We know that there's the other part of the game that you have to put the ball in play too, and we're gonna be talking about that. I don't think Bobby Dahlbeck will be swinging and missing 40% of the time during the season. I think if you look at his career. The first part of the season in whatever league he's at, he swings and misses a lot, but then he catches up, and we do believe that he will make more contact. What he did last year was eye-opening. It was fun to watch, and hopefully he can get a lot of traffic in front of him, and he can drive them in. And looking forward for those guys to do damage down there. It's a lot different, man. It was like what they asked from us. The little guys, it was like put a good at bat, and they were happy with, 8 pitch at bats and 9 pitch at bats. Even if you were making out now, where we at with this team is going to be a lot different.
Alex, why does Kevin Brown come to mind when you
Sinker, just the sinker. It's just uncomfortable. You can see him in his wind-up, the way his stride is different, and it's just came up. I'm not comparing him with Kevin, but stuff-wise, that's where we at, like Nate's stuff and Richards, it's it's different, and it's actually fun to watch. I saw that live EP, and I'm like, okay, this might be cool. So, like I said, we keep them healthy. They go out there every 5 days, and we should be okay.
I don't know if you can answer this or not, but is
I cannot answer that question.
Hypothetically.
Chaim talked about it already, so yeah. While I was doing my thing.
Hey guys, anything else for AC?
We're good. Thank you.